Welcome back to You Can Homeschool. I'm Tracy Hagerman, the happy homeschooler, and I'm here once again with the lovely Pat Fenner from Breakthrough
This is
Homeschooling.
clapping.
And Pat, it's episode 99.
Dang, there's a song, isn't there? 99 something. No, I'm not talking about 99 bottles of beer on the wall either.
99. I just sort of reflecting on, wow, how did we get here? That just seemed like
Yeah, I don't know.
so simple.
Now that wasn't so hard, was it?
No. So next week we'll be taping our 100th episode, which will actually be our final episode. But we're not going to get into that today. We are going to talk about that. We have exciting news, but that's for next week. So for today, we thought one of the things that would be really great for our listeners is we sort of went back and looked at all our stats on all our episodes and wanted to point out to our listeners some of our top listened to episodes, the ones that seem to resonate with people the most.
So
And
these are
maybe that was the,
episodes. So these are episodes that y'all have decided were our best. So,
yeah. So this is our listener's choice. So these
mhm.
are the top 10. And I know that, like if you ever, it's sort of like reading a good book. You read a book and you think, oh, that was great. And then you go back 6 months later and think, what was that part in that book? It applies to something I need now. And you go back and you look at it.
Mhm.
So we just want to give a reminder to our listeners of, maybe there's certain things that are going to resonate with you a little bit
Mhm.
more now. So we want to give you a reminder of your top episodes.
And as always, the links to them will be below these in the show notes, so you don't have to go, trying to find them, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so I'm going to get started. Our top episode was an episode that was one of our interview episodes
Mhm.
with Kokeb Girma McDonald, and she is a therapist who works with kids and helps them when there's learning disabilities. And that episode is called The Link Between Primitive Reflexes and a Child's Ability to Learn. And this episode is so great for
Mm.
any of you parents who have ever sat with your child and, gone through the curriculum or sat over many weeks or months and feel like you're not making progress. Feel
Mhm.
like, why is my child stuck in this particular area? And a lot of times, children can be stuck because there's certain things in their development that haven't happened sometimes as they should.
Mm.
So COCAB is an expert on how to help your child when things just aren't melding for them.
And you don't have to wait until or feel like your child has to have a learning disability to do this. I mean, this material, this was an excellent episode. It was a really good interview. And her, that it applies to learning in general. I think it's especially important because we have such sedentary lives too, and it encourages the development of activity in children. Uh, and the thing I liked about it too is she's, if I am correct, now she's got a series of three or maybe four books on this. I'll look it up and put the links in the show notes for that too. So she's really like, this is her jam. This is what she is working on. It was excellent and really a must listen to, I'd say, for whether or not your children, or if you're feeling that they're stuck.
Yeah, and she said like she has two children herself who have some learning disabilities,
Mhm.
and basically she said as a therapist she couldn't find on the market what she wanted for our kids because she wanted it to be fun. And you all know I'm the happy homeschooler. I'm anything that you can institute that's fun, that the kids are just naturally curious, that work in their day. I'm a huge proponent of that. And when I linked up with CoCab and her, what she's doing, she's revolutionizing a whole area of therapy for kids through game and play. And it is amazing the stuff that
Yes.
she's doing. So this is a top, our most listened to
Yeah.
episode.
So
So,
we could talk a lot longer about that, but we will move on because we have others. But
yeah.
Tracy and I both feel that was an excellent interview. That was with
And just a reminder, that was episode 34.
hmm?
Not sure if I mentioned that. So,
That's okay. It'll all be on the show notes anyway, so all the links. Yeah. All right, number two. Uh, number two was drum roll, please. How to homeschool with the little ones. Yes, multiple ages, because many homeschool families, at least back in the day, down south here, were large families, and that was a very popular one too, because that can be it's challenging having a single child too. So I'm not trying to minimize that because you do have the added issues of socialization and the added stress on everything being coming having to come from mom or feeling that way when you only have one. But then you have other problems or challenges when you have multiples, especially if you have large the time age difference span. We have 9 years between our second and third, and so when we started homeschooling our little ones, ooh, that was challenging. Yeah, so that's our number two. Did you have anything to talk
I
about that one?
I just wanted to add that I had a grade school teacher in my neighborhood. When she found out I homeschooled, she was like, "How do you do that with three different ages?" And I looked at her and I said, "Don't you have a room of 40 or 30 kids that are in grade four? Like, how do you do that?" She thought what I did was amazing. And I was sitting there like, I only have three, you have 30. But because it's different ages,
Right.
so I think this episode really hones in on how
Mm.
to maximize what you're doing so your children will they'll be overlapping in their learning between each other. Anyways, it's a great episode. A lot
Yeah.
of nuggets of information
Mm-hmm.
in there that we've learned. Again, I only have three. Pat had five, but we also share about some of the women we know that
Mm-hmm.
had even larger families and a lot of techniques that they utilize that I applied in my own
Mm-hmm.
homeschooling to help it better. So I think you'll really enjoy that one if you have a large family.
Yeah. All right, Tracy, what's next on the list?
The next one was actually episode 5, which was how to plan out your homeschool year.
Mm.
And I know a lot of homeschoolers, when they first start out, they're like, what curriculum? How? And if they've pulled their kids from school, they're like, I don't even know where they're at in their math. And like, what English and how much other stuff should we add in? And like, it just seems like this huge puzzle to figure out. So, this episode will really help you kind of hone in like, what's your main goal? How are you going to get out there? And what are some strategies at the beginning of the year to sort of set yourself up for success?
Right. Because it is a puzzle. And of course I don't like puzzles. So that's so I'm not a puzzle person, but I loved homeschooling. But it is a puzzle because, your family situations, people's situations are different and your family's situation will change and morph over time. People are different, teaching styles are different, learning styles are different. Like the resources, there's a bajillion of them out there. And so it is, fitting them all together. But like Tracy said, there are certain things that you can, and actually, this episode's coming out like in towards the summer as we're getting started on the summertime. This is a great time if you take a break from the books, to think about some of the things in that episode to get you started, because there are some foundational things you can think about that, despite this being a puzzle and you having to work things through, it can set you up for success. So yeah.
And sometimes people, when they say like, I don't want to do a lot of planning, which is fine. I think we have different homeschooling styles. Some like to go with the flow, but I think what you'll find in this episode is we're showing some bigger things that will actually allow for flexibility in
Right.
your homeschooling. So check that out if you want sort of a what's the end goal, but how can I also be flexible during the
Mm-hmm.
year?
Yep. Yep. All right. Number four, I guess we're up to, right?
And number 4 is, am I covering everything I need to teach?
Mm.
And, this was our 4th episode, which is kind of funny. It's one of our most listened to. And I think that's because I know I did this. I was always like, am I giving my child enough? Are they getting enough? And what I kind of learned over time was, I'm giving them too much. I'm trying to like shove all this stuff into their little brains. And that's not the best of homeschooling. The best of homeschooling is when you realize if you're doing a little bit every day, what a huge difference it could make. So this is
And it's
a great episode to get you balanced in that area.
And it's not so much the what information you can shove in their little brains, which of course we have both learned over the years. We didn't know this initially, but it's what you can help bloom, what you can help blossom in their lives. That's really what it is. But just the fact that if you're asking that question, am I doing enough? Am I, teaching, covering the right things, means you have a heart. It shows your heart. Okay. So you're a huge step ahead just with that. And thinking about it and kind of processing that question, you'll start to see, like Tracy said, you might be trying to plan too much, talking about the planning episode before. And it's not so much the planning, it's just learning how to maximize what does happen in your lives, in your situations, in your environment that helps your kids grow. So,
Yeah, and I also just wanted to add, um, if you're the type of person you got to the end of your homeschooling year and you felt, I don't feel we had a great year, because I found like certain years were better than others.
yeah.
And looking back, what I found is that certain years were more difficult because of other things going on in the family, as well as sometimes your children are going to strive towards something. They're going to strive, they're going to strive, they're going to strive. And all of a sudden, they're going to have that aha moment or that breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'll be leaps and bounds ahead. But that doesn't always happen every single year. Some years
Right.
are more difficult. So this episode in particular is really going to put your mind at ease. Like, if you feel you got to the end of the year and thought, oh, I don't know if we really made much progress. I felt frustrated. My kids felt frustrated. This is going to help you back up and really truly put your mind at ease to
Mm-hmm.
know that those little steps that don't always feel like you're making progress probably are. And we're going to talk about, in that episode, we talk about some of the reasons why that is.
Yes. So go listen to it. Okay.
I love that, Pat.
All right, so let's see. Next one, homeschool curriculum that rocks. And this is, I was kind of surprised that this was top 10 because, well, I guess not really, because people are always looking for curriculum. They're always asking for curriculum. So this was an episode that Tracy and I really just talked about the stuff that we've used, that we were familiar with, that we settled on, that we ended up enjoying. This may or may not resonate with you. There are a lot of people, and I really we'll talk about this next week. I really kind of see a little bit the future of homeschooling is a lot more fluidity in what we're teaching. But anyway, be that as it may. So this one, remember we homeschooled back in the day. So there are things that are time, tested and true through over time. But there are things that might not jive with your homeschool philosophy and format. But this was an episode that we talked about the things that worked for us. So
Yeah, and I know I know Pat and I remember us having a discussion about this,
hmm
because a lot of people get focused on what's the curriculum I should
right.
use, and in many ways that's really not the question. But I know I was sort of like pushing for this episode because I even though there's so much curriculum and so many things you can choose from, I really found that there were a couple really key things that we found that were so revolutionary in our homeschooling that it was like, I got to share this. I got to share. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this on an episode. So it's kind of like when you see a really good movie and you're like, oh, this is the most inspirational movie I've ever seen.
Right.
And you tell all your friends about it. This is kind of what that
Right.
episode was
And
about. It's like,
they might not all agree with you, but that's okay.
yeah, yeah. But it's kind of like, okay, well, why does she feel that way, or why did Pat choose this? So it was sort of sharing what we found were the
Yeah.
nuggets. And again, curriculum, it's totally dependent on your child's unique learning style and all that. But there are some real incredible nuggets out there that we
Yep.
wanted to share.
Yep.
So
All
okay,
right. Oh, this next one.
number 6, homeschooled record keeping.
Listen, no matter what you teach, like we don't need to say even much about this because no matter what you teach or how you teach, keep records. I mean, it is just really important. Whether it's yet, and it might be as simple as a journal, and we talk about it all in there, but record keeping is important. It just is. Some states require it, and then you have to do it their way. But there's nothing sweeter than pulling something out years later, or even at the end of the year, and show your kids seeing how far they've come. So even if that's the only reason you're doing it, because you're in a real loosey goosey state, uh, definitely you keep records, and we talk all about different ways and stuff like that in there.
Yeah, and also from the point of view as what if your kids go on to college or
Oh yes,
university, you'll find they will ask for certain things, and if you haven't had some records in place, it's so much more difficult to pull up what you need than if you've been doing it over time. So that's another key reason to just at least listen to the episode and then check in your state or
yeah,
province exactly what's required.
right.
It's better to do it as you go than
Oh yeah.
try and remember what you did.
You won't. I promise you won't. I know you feel like you won't forget, but you won't. I mean, you will. You won't.
All
All
right,
right.
number seven.
Mm.
Um, this is a big one. Is do I have what it takes?
And I'm kind of surprised based on how many people, just in my, in life online and conversations, how many people that say have some question or comment, some permutation of this. I'm surprised this wasn't up higher. But do I have what it takes? I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, I'm not patient enough. I'm not organized enough. I'm not, whatever, fill in the blank. I just couldn't do that. I don't know how you homeschool. I just couldn't do that. And wow, that's just like, that's not it. Don't worry, that's not it. I'm surprised that this was
But it is one of the most asked questions in the
absolutely.
beginning. And I found it was more one-on-one with friends of mine. They
Yeah.
kind of come to me and say like, everything sounds great, but I don't think I'm not sure I have the
You did.
skills. Like I didn't take physics in high school
Or
or like
I don't have any
I'm
teacher
a
training.
teacher. Yes. So you'll hear this, and then it's like, let us open that world to what homeschooling actually is, and don't worry, you've got everything and more than you possibly need. So that's a great episode
Yeah,
again to put your mind at rest and to encourage you that
absolutely.
it can be a fabulous journey, and you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
That's a good one to share too. If anybody ever come, I mean, go listen to it first, of course, so know you can respond or react with whoever you share it with, comment on it. But that's a good episode to share with people who are like kind of on the fence with homeschooling, but they're not sure, whatever. Yeah. All right, Tracy, what's our next one?
So the eighth popular one was our back to school episode, but our first back to school episode, that was episode 6. And we talked about as we, head into our first week of homeschool, what are some of the things we're doing? And you might be a little surprised
Hmm.
that we're not doing much book work.
Now, see, that was a what do you call it? That was a spoiler alert. We should have given a spoiler.
Oh, well, now you'll have to
Go
listen
listen and see.
go listen to it and see what homeschoolers are really doing that first week back in school, and you'll be inspired. And if you're not inspired, I guarantee your kids will be.
That's all right. Oh, this okay. Now the next one is really now this is important, I think, whether or not you homeschool. So, share this with a friend or whatever, even if you're not homeschooling. It was teaching money management. Now, it was teaching money management in your homeschool, but really that is something personally, my personal opinion is that it's something that shouldn't be taught in school. It should be taught from your parents, in the family context, except most adults have such bad money management skills. I mean, we just do because we haven't been taught, so break the cycle. Start teaching your kids about money management in a healthy, if you're Christian, in a biblical way. There are a ton of really solid resources out there. There's a lot of fluff out there too, but that's a good episode to listen to if you're struggling. Like, get them started on a solid footing, so that they don't have to have the same struggles as you might have had with finances.
Yeah, and I found in my own children, this was something I was a huge advocate of because my parents had been very strong teaching us this,
Hmm.
because we had to pay for our own higher education, which we knew from we were young. And I did the same thing with my own kids. But I can say, as three adults, my kids have been financially self-sufficient for a very long time.
And
So they,
doesn't that give you such a sense of peace when you're laying your head down, at night? You don't have to worry about. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that you can worry about, but that's
yes.
one less thing to worry about that, are they going to make it kind of.
And I've also found it's given them like I don't know, self-esteem. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Yeah.
my daughter was at my youngest daughter was at an interview recently, and they were asking her one of the most things you're proud of, and she was able to say, I paid for all my school and I walked out debt free.
Yeah.
And yes, they worked hard, but if you can set them up younger in a philosophy, in a way of doing that over time, I think, like, my kids are all so thankful for that, because they
Hmm.
have such a bright future, and it's not, sitting in a bunch of debt. They're starting
Right.
out, so I don't know, this was an episode that was near and dear to my heart, something that was really huge in our homeschooling that I really wanted my children to learn and
Sure.
to share with others. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, that brings us to drum roll, please. Um, the Actually, I'll insert a drum roll there. Anyway, that brings us to number 10, which actually was a three-way tie, which was really interesting. The things you can find out with analytics is just amazing. So you have the specific titles there. Why don't you tell them?
yes. Okay. So episode 40 was the 5+ things a homeschooling mama should know.
Mm-hmm. And what was, go ahead and just give the other two also the titles.
And episode 12 was homeschooling while working and through chaos. How do you get through that? How do you do that? And how do you do that with grace and joyfulness and peace? There is a way, ladies and gents. There is a way. And also the third one for the third way tie was our episode 8, which was Beyond the Books, volunteering as part of your homeschool.
Hmm. Which I have to say, this is that last one, the volunteering one. There's probably not too much to say right now about that because we're still kind of post pandemic. We're still kind of trying to re-navigate how to get back out into the world and get over our it's too peoply out there phobias. But volunteering is an amazing way to give back, to teach our kids to give back. And if that's part of your homeschool education, you are really setting them up. Combining that with teaching money management, I mean, those are things that are really setting them up for a solid future, as a citizen of the world, you know.
Yeah. And at the end of that episode, we also have a link to how to volunteer without leaving your neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
because of COVID, and that um, it's still really possible to
Yeah.
do right in your own home,
Mm-hmm.
right on your own, street, whatever. So we talk a little bit about that too, to
Mm-hmm.
help parents out with that.
But I think that so the first two, I really like the five things that every homeschooling mom should know. We talk about. Well, I don't. We should not give any previews on that one. They're important things, but I think you'll be surprised with what we feel mom should know. So that one's definitely going to be one you want to go listen to. But the homeschooling while working too, I think really plays into the future of homeschooling. It used to be the very typical view of a homeschool or portrait of a homeschooling family was, dad was working, mom was home with the kids. That has really, in my experience, has really morphed today. There's a lot more women working from home. There's a lot more homeschooling dads. And this didn't come up, but we had a series on homeschool dads. It was very interesting. We interviewed some of them. And that was very illuminating.
Mhm.
But a lot of parents, work from home. And in addition to that, a lot, well, I'm not gonna say a lot, but many homeschool families have some kind of a home business as well to start teaching their kids how to, be entrepreneurs, develop those entrepreneurial skills, and to be responsible about money. It's also a part of a way of helping to teach them about money management skills. So, the homeschooling while working is, I think, a really important episode. I think a lot of new homeschooling moms or current homeschooling moms will find some help in that, and it's very relevant.
Yeah, and maybe your situation, maybe you are a homeschooling mom and you're not working. That episode also covers things like, taking care of someone who's ill in your family, or
Hmm.
like things that happen that aren't planned, that all of a sudden, your attention is on something else, but you're still homeschooling. How do you do that? How do you
Right.
get through those times? The birth of a new baby, or so we cover a number of those topics and ways and strategies to get through those. So I think you'll really enjoy that
Yeah.
topic. I think it's applicable to many people in many different situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are our tops. And before we go, I do want to just share that, and we'll be talking a little bit more about this in our next episode, but I do want you to keep your eyes out or your ears out for my new podcast coming out, Strong Women, Bright Future. If you'd like to, it's coming out in June. If you want to just keep track of some, uh, be on the list so you know when it comes out, be the first to hear it. Uh, Excuse me, I'll put a list in I'll put a link in the show notes that you can get updates and stuff like that. It's really about, it's kind of was birthed from my journey of transitioning from homeschooling, a lot of self awareness and learning about myself, and kind of morphing about what the future looks like. So, if you go through any kind of transition or you're anticipating that, major life transition, or if you're feeling stuck, Strong Women, Bright Future is for you because it's who you are and what you have. Anyone listening to this, I know you're a strong woman. We're stronger than we think we are. And what's that saying? Your future's so bright, you're going to need to wear shades.
I love that, Pat. I'm looking forward to hearing your new podcast.
Thank you. Excited about
I
it.
think it's going to go gangbusters. Because
I
there's
hope
a lot
so.
of strong women out there and pivoting. We've had to pivot so many times in our life,
Ah,
women, so
it's kind of become a catchphrase that became, popular during the pandemic, but women have been doing this forever.
ever. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, hmm,
Forever.
yeah.
So I also want to say to our listeners, we've enjoyed so much talking about homeschooling and our experiences and sharing with you some of our nuggets. And I think, anyone who decides to homeschool, I really hope that you find the blessing of homeschooling, the adventure of homeschooling, and keep that joy that you get to have all that time with your kids that goes so fast. So enjoy your homeschooling journey. We look forward to talking to you next week
Yeah.
on our 100th episode. So
Unbelievable.
exciting. And I don't know, did you have any last words, Pat? No? Okay, she said she's nodding no at me.
Nope.
So
Hmm.
you can homeschool. It can be absolutely fabulous. Have a awesome, awesome week.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.